expenditure on infrastructure building, we believe that the virtuous cycle will happen, and also there will be a crowding in effect for the private investments to come in. So there was never a doubt other than this.
The elections were not weighing on your mind?
No, actually we thought if the economy does well and if growth has attained that kind of a momentum, the multiplier effect, which because when you spend on infrastructure and when you do capital expenditure, for every rupee that you spend, approximately 2.95 is what you would get as a multiplier, as opposed to when you're giving money through revenue expenditure, you get less than 1 rupee for every rupee that you spend, something in the range of 0.95 or something. And therefore we thought it was important to have maximum multiplier effect, and that would have enough ripple in the economy whereby the well-being of the citizens will be attended to. So if that is happening, why would any other consideration come in, even with the elections on? Elections come and go, but the economy, particularly at this time, at this juncture, requires that strong support.
Nirmala ji, if you look at India, it is one of the bright spots in the global economy.
That's
Today,
right.
our economy is expected to grow at 8.5% next year. The same number for China is 4.8%, Brazil 1.6%, Indonesia 5.6%. Do you think that an 8% plus kind of growth is sustainable over the next few years?
If things go the way they are going now, in that gradually all sectors come up and are on their toes. And why do I say this? I recognize that even now the hospitality and contact intensive sectors are still requiring support, and that's been provided for in the budget. So our understanding is, if even those sectors revive as much as they would like to, and with support from government and with support from the systems, banking and others, yes, that is achievable.
You know, this time one big headline of your budget has been this big capex boost. You also referred to it just a little while ago. Allocation of 7.5 lakh crore. Right. You know, that's a big number, up 35% from last year. Do you think that this will fire up private investments? If that happens, you know, it could change the face of the economy. Are you confident of that?
I'm hopeful of that, because you see, I'm looking at it from slightly different stages and also environments. In 2019, for instance, when we brought in the reduction in the corporate tax and brought it down to such level which was globally probably the lowest or probably one of the few lowest rates, we that year were sort of reminded saying your corporate tax revenues have gone down, you saw it's not going to help and so on. But we had this great faith, and Prime Minister's interaction with the industry also was very reassuring, because people felt that that was a very positive, constructive steps. And what did it do? Actually, many of the industries, many of the big companies who actually generate wealth and create also jobs, so you saw them per media reports leveraging it, probably cleaning up their debts and so on. But that providentially has come of help during the pandemic time, that today you find many of them moving into areas of expanding their capacity. Mergers are happening, acquisitions are happening. You see that companies are out there to be able to expand their capacities, looking at the buoyant Indian market. And also exports are growing, which means export potential is also there for private sector investments to see the opportunity available, and expansion and also newer capacities are definitely going to come in. The last point on that is, you also see, in spite of all the naysayers, FDI into this country, in spite of all the speculation about other central banking authorities taking different call, whether it is the Fed or anywhere else, FDIs are still coming into this country in a big way. They are not FPIs.
Yes.
FDIs come in to be invested in, to be on the boards of companies and then take a call. And therefore, I think companies now are happy to be partnering with a lot of FDIs which are coming in and increasing their manufacturing capacities, servicing capacities, not just to serve Indian market, but also be able to access global markets. And our PLI scheme also indicates that.
Yes. Nirmala ji, if you look at the actual spending from CapEx allocation so far in the first 8 months of this year, it is at 50% of the allocation of 5.5 lakh crore. Now you increase that to 7.5 lakh crore next year. How confident are you that the spending will keep pace with the allocation?
First of all, this year has been, yes, we had made an allocation till December, you are right, 65 to 68% has been utilized by the departments for spending on public infrastructure. But after the budget was announced, let's not forget that we had Omicron, the second wave, not even Omicron, second wave in April. And although we came out of it, thank God for that, although we came out of it quickly, it also staggered that first quarter's expenditure into the second, into the third, and so on. So reaching 68 in spite of the first quarter April and a bit of May going in because of the second wave and the psychological imprint it left on people, for us to catch up with the intended public expenditure did have a lag effect. So I would think that shouldn't be the case this coming year, now that Omicron also is showing signs of withdrawing. I don't want to say it's gone away, we'll have to be careful, but still.
Nirmala ji, you've addressed the supply side of the issue. I come to now the demand side. The big issue is how do we really revive demand? So you've got your large capital expenditure program chalked out. Could you have considered cutting taxes to put more money into the hands of the consumer?
There are ways in which demand creation can happen. In our country, where the taxpayers' number and also the taxpayers' profile is seen, then you also realize that it is possible to provide stability in tax regime, predictability in tax regime, and that I would think is a very important factor at a time like this. You don't want to bring in elements of uncertainty, and as a result of which some sections feeling, oh, all right, I've got some relief, but some other sections feeling that hadn't come to us. And probably this would have a bearing on many others. Any exemption given is also just not for those who desperately need it, but by law would be applicable for others who probably don't need it so much, but because the system and the framing is such that it'll benefit everybody. So that is one point. And second, if you're looking at tax stability, if you're looking at predictability and making sure that you have not increased anybody's burden, you're at least making sure that people who have planned their monies can be sure that that is remaining unaffected. So we in this budget placed a lot of emphasis on stability and predictability. I'm no cricket watcher, but I would definitely say this from my outsider's understanding. Particularly in a T20 match, it will be the opening batsman can have the liberty to smash hit and do a lot of good sort of risk-taking batting, and probably the end overs the fellows would have to catch up doing as much as they can because they'll have to meet the target and the gap which has to be filled. But there is a sweat toil happening which is in between the two. you can probably take that situation.
I must say your cricket understanding is quite decent.
Thank you.
No, that's, I think, predictability, stability, I would even say continuity. I think that's been the hallmark of your last three budgets, as I have closely seen it. Let me come to something that is, a niggling issue, a global headache in some senses, inflation. Look at the US, for instance. Our consumer inflation has obviously stayed in the 4 to 6% range. But, if that were to really go up in the coming years, I think do you think that could throw some kind of a spanner in the works?
તો બજેટ 2022 ગઈકાલે ડિક્લેર થયું અને ત્યારબાદ આજે જ્યારે પહેલો ઇન્ટરવ્યૂ આપ્યો નાણામંત્રીએ ત્યારે તેઓએ જણાવ્યું નેટવર્ક 18 ને કે વિકાસને આગળ કરવા માટે વધુ ફોકસ હશે આ વખતે બજેટનું દેશને અર્થતંત્રને આગળ વધારવા માટે પણ ચોક્કસથી નજર હશે તો CNN News 18 CNBC TV 18 અને news18.com/moneycontrol.com પર નાણામંત્રી સાથેનો સમગ્ર ઇન્ટરવ્યૂ તમે જોઈ શકો છો હવે અન્ય સમાચારો પર નજર કરીએ તો ગુજરાત પોલીસ કાફલામાં ઉમેરાયા છે વધુ કેટલાક વાહનો કુલ 949 વાહનોનું લોકાર્પણ કરવામાં આવ્યું જેમાં 55 PCR વાહન 2 પ્રકારના ટુ વ્હીલર 100 પ્લેઝર અને 298 બાઇક ઉપરાંત 68 સી ટીમ માટે વાહનનો સમાવેશ કરવામાં આવ્યો છે ગાંધીનગર ખાતે ગૃહ રાજ્યમંત્રી હર્ષ સંઘવીએ તમામ વાહનોને લીલી ઝંડી આપી કાર્યક્રમમાં ગૃહ રાજ્યમંત્રી હર્ષ સંઘવીએ રાજ્યમાં કાર્યરત સી ટીમની કામગીરીના વખાણ પણ કર્યા
ગુજરાતની પોલીસ વ્યવસ્થાઓમાં વધારો કરતા આજે આશરે 1000 જેટલા વેહિકલોને લીલી ઝંડી આપવામાં આવી છે જેમાં ખાસ કરીને સી ટીમ માટે મોપેડની વ્યવસ્થા વિવિધ પોલીસ સ્ટેશનો માટે બાઇકની વ્યવસ્થા
એટીએમમાં રૂપિયા ઉપાડવા જાઓ ત્યારે ચેતી જજો એટીએમમાં રૂપિયા ઉપાડતી વખતે કોઈ અજાણ્યો વ્યક્તિ તમને મદદ કરવાનું કહે તો મદદ લેતી વખતે ખાસ ધ્યાન આપવું કારણ કે મદદના બહાને કાર્ડ બદલીને પાસવર્ડ ચોરી કરીને લોકોના ખાતામાંથી રૂપિયા ઉપાડતી આંતરરાજ્ય ગેંગના એક વ્યક્તિની સુરત પોલીસે ધરપકડ કરી છે પોલીસના હાથે લાગેલા વ્યક્તિ પાસેથી અલગ અલગ બેંકના કુલ 39 એટીએમ કાર્ડ મળી આવ્યા છે શહેરમાં એટીએમ કાર્ડ બદલીને છેતરપિંડી કરતા બનાવ બનતા સુરત પોલીસ સક્રિય થઈ હતી सूरत एसओजी पुलिस बातमीना आधारे मूळ यूपीना રહેવાસી आरोपी संतोष चंद्रभान यादवनी धरपकड़ करी कायदेसरनी कार्यवाही हाथ धरी है दाहोद शहर में रखड़ता ढोरोथी शहरीजनों त्राहीमाम पोकारी उठ्या छे रस्ता वच्चे आखलानी लड़ाईथी भयनो माहोल छवायो छे दाहोद शहरना जाहेर मार्गों पर रखड़ता ढोरना लीधे शहरीजनों ने पारावार मुश्केलीओनो सामनो करवो पड़ी रह्यो छे नगरपालिका द्वारा अनेकवार जाहेरात करवामां आवी छे के टूंक समयमां ढोर पकड़वा माटे एजन्सीने कामगीरी सोंपी देवामां आवशे परंतु हजी सुधी रखड़ता ढोर मामले तंत्र द्वारा कोई नक्कर पगलां नथी लेवामां आव्या जेना कारणे शहरीजनों त्राहीमाम पोकारी उठ्या छे मुख्य मार्गों पर ढोरोना जमावडाना कारणे अनेकवार अकस्मातो पण सर्जाता होय छे
दाहोद शहर में अत्यारे रखड़ता ढोरोनो त्रास खूब ज वधी गयो छे जेना कारणे ट्राफिक जामनी समस्या तो ऊभी थाय ज छे पण अमुक जे मोटा मोटा सांढ वच्चे लड़ाई छे